He's going to want to come in once I start talking. I've got some work going on outside, so he's been particularly nosy. Great, let's start then. So yeah, welcome. Thank you all for joining. I think we've got 45 minutes, Susie, have we?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, great. 45 minutes. We're going to talk about PSBA homework, and just a brief introduction for myself. Sorry if you don't know me, my name is Chris Greenwood. I'm the PSBA client partner. In terms of, we're just going to do some brief introductions to who's going to be presenting on the call. We're then going to go into a service overview, look at the different options we're proposing, how we're going to support it, and then have a Q&A, an open forum at the end, just to tease out any questions. We recently did one on public access Wi-Fi. That went really well, and actually there's a lot of interaction, a lot of questions at the end, which I hope people found useful. So I think it's just, I've obviously introduced myself as well. So we're also going to have Richard Jones doing most of the talking. So Richard Jones is the PSBA lead TDA, for those who don't know. So Rich has been instrumental with Ross as well, Ross Cummings, another technical lead on the contract, in developing this service. But just like a brief introduction from myself on sort of why Homeworker. I mean, I think probably some of the reasons are fairly clear. Homeworking solutions is something we've considered for quite some time on the PSBA, but actually, sort of since February, March this year, and the change in the world and our day-to-day lives, then I think actually working from home has become a reality. Certainly for a lot of us. I've been working at home myself for the last full time since March, and I know in the public sector world that is quite a step change to have a large part of your employee base actually working from home. So we felt that actually from a PSBA perspective, we needed to provide an option through the catalogue for home working, and it needed to meet the requirements that are now presented to public sector organisations. And the way that we've gone about this is that we've kind of tried to reach a balance. We felt, we wanted to extend essentially PSBA into the home, so you get the same look and feel, the same security, the same reliability, the same experience. So should there ever be a problem, that actually we deal with that in the same way that we would deal one of your major sites or your headquarters. So that was our kind of thought process. We felt that we needed to look at resilience, and we also needed to look at different options, because obviously different options comes with different price points. So that's where we are. There's a lot of work that's gone into this. This is probably the first time that we've shared it en masse with organizations. There was a flyer that went out, and yeah, we just want to talk you through actually the services that we have, and gauge the feedback. Is this of use? Perhaps some comments from organizations on actually what is your homeworker strategy going forward, if it has been defined. So that would really help us. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. Rich, over to you.
Yeah, great, thanks. Yeah, so I'll run through a few slides now, and if you want to put any questions in the Teams chat, myself and Ross, who's done a lot of work on pulling this service together and doing the testing between us, we will answer those at the end. Okay, so let's move on to the first slide. So when we were looking at the key requirements for the service, there were sort of 4 areas that we believe are fundamental features, to providing that effective home worker solution. So firstly, we wanted to provide users with a sort of similar log-on experience they would experience, if they were sat in their office. So no need to use a client-based VPN, just having that always-on secure access to their home network from their home environment. The solution should guarantee high-speed connectivity using existing PSBA access circuit types and the QoS mechanisms that we're able to provide with that. And again, providing that equivalent experience to office-based staff who are using PSBA connectivity today. The service should also be have an element of high availability with it. So we wanted to ensure there was a backup WAN connection available and seamless failover. And finally, you know, our fourth sort of requirement was security features such as encryption and firewall services should be available options to you to protect data in transit and restrict access to, you know, specific networks and services as you see fit. So when we sort of started designing the solution, then there were a number of sort of features that we've introduced into this to provide you with the service, a service that we know we can readily support and use in sort of reliable hardware and technologies as similar to what we do today for other PSPA services. So the solution we've come up with will use existing PSPA access circuit types, so allowing us to offer that high quality service with solid SLAs. We'll deliver a PSPA MPLS VPN direct to the home, so negating the need for any additional customer VPN clients. In the event the primary WAN connection fails, we're going to provide a backup 4G LTE capability on the CPE. We will also provide a managed wireless LAN service into the home as well. So as standard, and with that, we will provide optional ATO.1x authentication if that's required by the customer. There's also then an option for packet encryption and or a firewall service on that CPE. So all of this will be bundled up then onto a single device. The Cisco ISR 1100 is our CPE of choice for providing the home worker service. Now, there are a number of options that we believe we need to provide for individual use cases in the home, and each one of those will come with a different SLA that's sympathetic to the, you know, the fact that services are provided into people's homes and that access may or may not be possible at all times of the day. So the first option on there is Enhanced Plus. So this is going to use an Openreach fiber Ethernet access direct service as the primary WAN medium and EAD circuit. And that will provide dedicated fiber connection then between the home and the serving exchange where one of our PSPA PE nodes will be located. And if you've got that direct connectivity, it allows us to control all elements of QoS. It guarantees symmetric bandwidth, you know, out to the home. We think this would be a key option with the EAD is that it is very reliable and comes with a 5-hour break fix SLA from Openreach. So it would be ideally suited really to staff who are providing critical support services or possibly clinicians or senior management that really need that robust service, a good SLA on break fix, and a high available bandwidth. The other two options then are the Enhanced and the Essential. So the primary WAN medium for these options will be FTTP or FTTC services, depending on availability. The Enhanced Plus and Enhanced will come with the LTE 4G provided as a backup WAN medium. And that backup LTE connection will be an internet connection on the EE Internet APN. So really for us, it makes us then, it's a standard deployment that we can put out there on all these CPEs. There will be a 10 gigabyte monthly allowance on that backup SIM, and that will come from a sort of central PSPA pool of data that we'll have access to. So in the event that that primary circuit is lost, route over that LTE connection. What we're intending on doing, what we are going to do is encrypt all traffic that goes over the EE Internet APN back into PSPA. And with Enhanced Plus and Enhanced, we're also going to have the option to encrypt all traffic on the primary connection as well, if that's desirable. And with that as well, we're going to provide an option for a zone-based firewall, which will apply within the router's configuration if required. On all three options, Wi-Fi will be standard. Okay, so if we have a look at some of those features in a bit more detail. First then, so on the side of regarding communication privacy, as sort of noted earlier, the primary connection on all three services is going to be private MPLS VPN out to the home, directly back into PSPA. With Enhanced Plus and Enhanced, customers, as I say, will have the option to elect for encryption of all traffic. So that could be important if customers believe that the classification of data being transferred, combined with the fact the physical setup of someone being in a home environment. If you believe that's required, it necessitates that additional level of security, then we can provide that on this service. And as I was saying, on the LTE backup connection, encryption will be provided as standard. So for the encryption, we'll be using PKI certificate-based infrastructure. So there'll be a pair of IPsec head ends, one in North Wales and the other in South Wales. And we're going to use dynamic multi-point VPN for resilience and ease of deployment to build those tunnels back into PSBA. We will host a certificate root server and grant, revoke, renew certificates as part of that service. So we'll be managing that. So on installation of a home worker CPE, our field engineer will go out to site, put the CPE in, request enrollment with the CE server, and then the certificate on the CPE then will be used to verify the identity of that CPE and subsequently then create the necessary IPsec associations. So we're also going to then offer the option of a firewall service as well. So this is a feature that we're providing now into the health sector to control network and protocol access to GPs all across Wales. And we intend on allowing a similar practice for the home worker solution as well. So the deployment will be managed by us through our Cisco Security Manager platform. And if that feature then is deemed necessary for your home workers at the time of order, then we'd be looking to yourselves to provide a rule set template, which we can then deploy then automatically out to all the home worker sites for each customer. Finally, then, as I say earlier, then wireless LAN will be provided on each of the options and managed by us via the inbuilt wireless LAN controller that ships on the CPE. An SSID will be broadcast, and we'll terminate that back on the router into a single PSBA VRF of your choice. We'll use WPA2 for local radio encryption. And then regarding DHCP, if centralized DHCP is required, as we would today on any PSBA service, we can enable IP helper. Or if a local allocation is desirable, then we will, for this service, set up a small DHCP pool on that CPE. Have a little look at wireless authentication then on the next slide. So the options that we intend on providing authentication of the client, the customer themselves, will either be a pre-shared key option or an 802.1x EAP EAP-based authentication. If you opt for the pre-shared key option, we'll supply a static SSID name and pre-shared key, and we'll configure that on the wireless LAN with pre-shared key authentication. And then it's down then to the customer how they manage, how the end user themselves actually then connects to the network, either by entering the password that would have been provided, or alternatively, perhaps pre-configured end user devices, and we can then put that out as a hidden SSID if that's the preferred option. So there's a couple of ways of doing that there. The alternative then is to go with the .1x EAP-based authentication, which we assume a lot of customers will probably be interested in doing. So as with the pre-shared key option, the customer will supply the static SSID. However, we'll configure the wireless LAN then to use authentication, forcing the onboard wireless LAN controller to pass those auth requests back to your Radius servers before allowing access. And we'll allow for the configuration of up to 3 Radius servers as part of this. Okay, so we'll have a little look at the CPE next. So the ISR 1100 is a similar size to a home hub in effect, and it can be just sat on a desk, or there is the option for it to be wall mountable. It is fanless, so it would be a very quiet device. Typical power draw is less than 30 watts. And most importantly, from our perspective, this has been a proven capable device on the PSBA. We'll happily handle the demands that we're putting on there. and give that assured service. So there are two variants. Both of them have particularly long names. So the 11118P LTE EAW, or EOR as I call it for short, is that's what we're using for the Enhanced Plus service, and also for FTTP on the Enhanced and Essential options. And then the 11174P, that device then has an inbuilt VDSL modem and will be used where we put FTTC in as the preferred primary access medium. Okay, so if we talk next a little bit about the order and installation process. On order, then we'll provide a tailored CRF form to capture all the requirements for each of those sort of specific features that we talked about a bit earlier on the slides. Where a customer is taking an FTTC service for this, then the copper pair would normally be terminated near an existing PSTN. Alternative locations would need to be agreed in advance. So it's quite important that we do catch as much information on the CRF about where in the user's home the circuit will be terminated. An OpenReach then can be guided to install the phone socket, ideally in close proximity of the required location of the CPE. That PSTN line is solely for PSPA connectivity purposes. Outgoing calls are barred on it, as it is with any other FTTC service that we put in today on PSPA. The router will come with a 2-meter RJ11 VDSL cable that will plug into then the NTE that OpenReach put in. If we're looking at the FTTP service, that will be provided on an ONT, the optical network termination unit. So they are wall-mounted units, generally fixed quite firmly onto the wall to avoid any movement and potential damage to the fibre, allow some space around it for ventilation as well. So with the ONT, it does require an external power supply from AC mains. It can't be line powered over the fibre or over the the Ethernet connection from the house. It will need a power supply to it. If we're looking at the Enhanced Plus service, that's delivered on the EAD, and that would come on a slimline Adva NTE, which could be standalone again or could be wall mounted. The option is there for that. It's a 1U device, ships with dual power supplies. It produces no sort of perceivable noise or heat, and typical power consumption of about 16 watts. But as you can imagine with that, we'd be looking at a survey would need to be performed in advance, and very important with that is considerations made to where it's going to be located and also the availability of a pair of 13 amp plug sockets. So it certainly needs some consideration for that option. So regarding then the installation of a CPE for any one of these options, the CPE will come, we'll be having a field engineer visit, there'll be a base configuration on the CPE, the LTE SIM will already be inserted. As I say, we're initially looking at a field engineer visit to install the CPE so that we can just do the certificate enrollment, any testing of the fallback onto the LTE. The CPE itself, that has a single power supply, and is designed to remain powered on at all times. It's important we deem this as a fully managed service, and the CPE, as with any sort of other home hub, is there really to be left on, ideally at all times, providing that assured service. So that's the end of the slides, and we'll happily. Actually, that's not quite true, because I think we've got one or two on costs and support, Chris, if you'd like to cover some of that off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks, Rich. So as Rich has described, there are a number of different options here. And I think you'll understand that what is described here is really kind of, like we talked about, the extension of the PSBA into home. And this is an enterprise kind of grade solution with things like resilience built in. So I'm not going to go through the numbers because obviously they're all on screen here, and I'm sure we can send the slide deck afterwards. But we range from obviously the 100 meg EAD, which a lot of you will recognise some of that pricing anyway, all the way down to the FTTC, which has a monthly charge of £64. We've also offered an option as well to actually amortise the installation costs, building that into the monthly charge. So actually, it does feel like a broadband solution that you might provide in the home, because you don't often have install costs for that as well. So those are the price points, and I think, like I say, happily take some feedback on those, or if anyone wants to send, reach out to your respective BDM to discuss this, then again, we can look at your requirement, and depending on quantities, then we can certainly start we pull together a quote. From a support perspective, it's going to look and feel very similar to your current experience on PSBA. We didn't want it to feel any different. So should you have a fault, you would call the service desk. It would be managed in exactly the same way, except for the SLAs. Richard's already alluded, there is a slightly increased SLA on a home worker solution, but in a couple of those options, we have built-in resilience. So we think it's very reliable. But should there be a problem, your call will be handled in an identical way that any other support call would be on the PSBA. That's it for me.
Okay. So yeah, we'll happily take any questions. Just stop sharing this a moment.
Yeah, I see there's one question from Gareth Pierce. Any roadmap for CERT exchange, because they're currently using a CERT and the user profile? It's not something we've tested, to be perfectly honest there. But it would really depend. I mean, I guess you're probably using ICE or something similar for that CERT exchange at the moment. Whether the whether that EAP communication would be valid from the WLC that's built in on the 1100, we'd have to test. But it's certainly something that, if it was a requirement, that we'd be more than happy to work with you, Gareth, to test that out. I see no reason that wouldn't work, to be honest. Quite simply because it's a built-in WLC, but I see no reason that it wouldn't take the supplicant past that initial credentials across to ICE, and then ICE should just communicate back with the client then on a CERT exchange. But yes, we'd have to test it, is the honest answer. We're more than happy to do so should the requirement be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we envisage, with different sectors, different organisations, there are going to be some key things that that we may need to look at and test, and if the demand is there, we will certainly give consideration to introducing them to the service. Any other questions at all?
Come on, surely somebody's got a stinker for us here. Yeah, come on, put us under a bit of pressure.
I suppose it would be good to know if there was, what people's thoughts are on this as a service, and if there is any sort of clear strategy around home worker in different sectors or for different organisations at the moment, or if it's still, something that is an evolving situation.
I can speak for RCT and say, it's been a bit fluid, and it's still a little bit fluid. We've had a bit of a challenge rolling out a number of laptops to people who were desk-based workers, and actually changing our way of working quite considerably. And also, I would say that a client-based VPN solution is the one that we've had to implement quite quickly in order to get us over that line, and we're starting to now explore the services that we need to provide long term, like the telephony piece as well. Yeah. So this obviously would allow us to plug in, with a Cisco house in terms of telephony. It would allow us to plug in Cisco handsets in directly and to kind of provide that function. But I would also say that the costs to me are a little bit pricey.
Okay.
Given at the moment, people are kind of using broadband and client-based VPN.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of is quite. It's, you know, there's a lot of there's a lot of reasons not to do it in terms of price, but that's something we'll explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, this is really out there as a sort of longer term solution. And that, you know, you know, if I take my own personal example, as soon as my children come home and start going on the Xbox and whatever else it is they're doing, it certainly does impact service, you know, so that we think there is that sort of longer term need out there for a dedicated service. But yes, it won't suit everyone. And that's good feedback. And I think, yeah, other organisations, Gareth, are also still in quite a fluid situation around defining what the future is going to look like. So thank you for that.
I think we're the same as well, Rich, from the SRS perspective, and Newport in particular. I mean, we've been using VPN now for years, so we rely on the end users broadband, and we don't seem to have any issues with that. And voice is moving to Teams, so I don't see a real requirement for another circuit to go into people's houses, especially if it's going to have to be funded by the council. I don't think they would pick up on that. Maybe for councillors, they might, but I don't see it for the end user, especially when we're using things like currently using NetMotion and Cisco VPN, but we're looking to go to Always On, which is provided by Microsoft.
Yeah,
so the license in there is kind of cheap as well. So I don't know. I think the cost there and having another circuit in the house would put our partners off. Definitely.
I mean, if I can just chip in a bit there, the requirements to ourselves and BT's obviously come from Welsh Government, who wanted to put a service out there, and a number of options were discussed with them, which, you know, we had sat down as a technical team and put forward, and one of them was a much cheaper option, which was to provide a basic broadband connection. But give some management wrap around it. Welsh Government pretty much didn't want to go down that route. They wanted us to very much keep it as a premium solution. And what Richard has said there, it won't be one for all. It really is looking at people who are permanently based at home, and therefore need a reliable connection that they absolutely depend upon. Hence the reason for the 4G backup. I mean, you know, I understand what people are saying. When you look at it compared to home broadband, then financially, yeah, it doesn't stack up. But when you actually look at the service that you're getting in terms of the quality of router, the quality of equipment, the backup routes, and then the support on top, that's where it becomes a viable product. So yes, absolutely, it is not going to be one for all, and it really is going to be for more geared towards senior members of staff, and very much the clinical sector. I think was one that was very much looked at as the absolute need for, if, say, for instance, they could not attend hospitals at all because of, say, COVID outbreak, but if they got to the point they just could not attend at all, that everything would have to be done, such as looking at x-rays, all sorts of clinical records, and therefore the connection had to be as dependable as them being in there. So that just to put that was the reason there.
The one that springs to mind immediately for me, I guess, would be because we are looking at, you know, the primary services in what you've just outlined, really. Track and trace is one where, you know, that's very much a solution that's vital, and it's being run from within the council at the moment in RCT, across the Cwmtaf area. Is there options to drop traffic out of that tunnel locally onto the broadband, so that, because they use a lot of telephony services that we wouldn't really want to traverse our internal network?
So you would want this to have a local internet breakout?
Yes.
It's. Do you mean as well as, so a sort of split tunneling type situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So split tunnel. So we would, you know, for the track and trace environment.
Technically, it's possible. It hasn't been included as part of that, but from a technical point of view, yes, I could tell you that would be possible for us to do that, to actually split pure internet and an MPLS VPN on the same device, as it is at other sites, and we could then route the traffic required out to the internet. So again, Gareth, and I guess that's a real reason for these. It's a great question because these are the sort of feedback that we need to tailor the service to what you actually want. And because because it's a premium service, then we're quite prepared to look at that tailoring situation to make it fit with people like RCT. So that's fine.
You know, it's quite a few things that we would, if you like, trust to go straight out, and that would be Teams traffic, Outlook traffic, Office 365 traffic, and then we would kind of, and you know, provided we could make sure that we knew what outgoing IP address range, so we can control the contextual access, and then we would look at things like track and trace, where we don't really want telephony to traverse our breakout in for our own pipe. We would want that to go direct.
Yeah, I think, I mean, say technically that's more than possible for us to provide a local internet connection there. So, Richard, I guess it's something we take away with Chris and
absolutely
try and get the BDMs to perhaps collect.
We had considered some of those kind of scenarios that Gareth describes, and ultimately we would like to start, almost have a second phase of this in the future as an SD-WAN solution. And have that additional flexibility and more control from a customer perspective in which applications are routing where. But we do need to evolve, and at the moment the requirement is to just try and get out there, as Ross describes, that a robust service that we can really stand behind and say this is going to provide key home workers with the service that they need.
I see Chris Price. Hello, Chris. You've asked the question regarding the use of extenders and possibly that we haven't considered as yet. That's a very good question. That hasn't been considered, and we certainly wouldn't rule that out. But I think because it's a managed service, we would have to look into what we were prepared to do in terms of extending it through a user's house. So if they wanted further APs to extend, then yes, I think we certainly could look at that. And again, but it would have to be under the control of our equipment in order for us to provide that managed service.
Okay. Any more questions from anyone? I think that's probably it.
Okay. We've got a couple of things to take away.
Couple of points to take away, absolutely.
The use of certs and EAP, which we can have a look at.
Yeah.
The other one was local internet breakout for a form of split tunneling, and also the simplest way of extending that signal and retaining the management of it. Happy to take anything else away from anyone if there is anything else.
Okay, good. Right, well, thank you very much for your time, everyone. Much appreciated. We'll take those points away. The service is there. It is available if people are interested in it, in discussing this further directly with ourselves. We're more than happy to. In the meantime, thank you very much. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Right. Cheers.
Thank you. Yes, thanks a lot.